on the road again. Isn't that a song or something?
Something like that.
Something like that. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen.
We should say lady and gentlemen.
Yeah, I think that I haven't quite looked into the analytics quite yet, but pretty sure our distribution's a good like 95.5 male to female, but rest assured, we're totally open to female viewers who want to listen to our yapping. In any case, you folks who have seen the previous videos can probably guess where we're headed. Because it seems to just be one final destination in all scenarios. But returning to the Southern Ohio stable to pick up a vehicle that you folks are probably also familiar with. We might keep it a little bit of a surprise. Anticipation, that's like the biggest thing about YouTube, isn't it?
In fact, I don't even know which one we're getting.
Oh, okay, well, good.
It's one of two.
It's going to be a surprise for our buddy Noah as well. We are about 2 hours and 56 minutes away. We are actually in, again, a familiar vehicle to you folks. This stuff all comes full circle, clearly. But the good old FJ Cruiser. I'm starting to realize that my uncle's like literally my only source of
cars.
Good YouTube content and cars, yeah.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic of yapping sessions, why don't you share a little bit of how your experience with the FJ has been? Before you do, I was going to mention, I'm quite impressed for a vehicle that has a drag coefficient probably commensurate with your average toaster.
Or a cow.
Or cow. This thing's doing good. We're trotting around 80 right now. And until you catch like a very strong wind, you feel super solid in this thing.
Yeah.
Blind spots are
horrendous.
Yeah, they're about as advertised, but something to get used to, you know? Enough blabber for me, my apologies. Talk about how long you've had it, mileage you put onto it.
How long have I had it?
Well,
2 months?
That sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
I'll have to check when that video got posted.
Yeah, probably about 2 months. And it's been great. The car drives nice. Gas mileage is absolutely terrible.
Yeah, as I'm watching the gauge literally move.
You can, you can literally see the gauge move as you're driving down the road. It's frustrating, but it comes with its perks because you get a nice car.
Yep.
Nice little exhaust in the back with working AC.
What we have here is the maiden startup. After we took her offline for several weeks, we cleaned her on belly, patched her up, and Sandy's back ready for the road. First thing you're going to hear is the new exhaust.
Yeah, is there anything you miss from the Focus, even in the slightest?
When you do a really, really hard leg day in the gym and you try and press the clutch down, you regret your life choices because your leg is shaking like I don't even know, a toothpick.
Yeah.
And yeah, you try to like let go of the clutch in first gear and your leg's shaking so bad you just drop it and you're just doing one of these.
It's probably a good thing that you've got only, a 5-minute drive home, if that.
Yeah, I probably should just walk home on those days.
That might actually be less fatiguing. But anyways, that is all for our intro here. And probably get back with you guys when we see the cousins. All right, well, first gas station stop, probably of many this trip. This vehicle has many likable attributes. Gas mileage certainly not being one of them. Also, looks like Bowling Green's got game coming up or something across the street. I don't know. $40 in the tank. So I think we put about 15.5 gallons in her.
It's a 19-gallon tank.
Oh, is it 19-gallon tank? Okay.
Yeah. Was the light on?
It was.
Okay.
It was, yeah.
That's 4 gallons still empty.
Oh, okay. Somebody's been reading their owner's manual. To no surprise, there is a vehicle obstruction in the way of what we're bringing home there. Should have figured there'd be a truck with its front end torn apart upon our arrival. So this is my cousin's vehicle, and it's under the knife right now for these babies. Little spacers for the sway bar because somebody had to have fancy struts on their Pavement Princess. The only off-road that this vehicle sees is when he accidentally turns onto a dirt road. The spacers also need to get added onto this side. This is kind of why this project is not finalized. It's because this side's a little bit more tricky. When the struts initially got installed, the welded nuts on the inside of the frame here that the sway bar bolts thread up into snapped loose as soon as we hit those with an impact back when we did that. So we had to cut a little access hole in the frame here and then tack weld those little nuts back on, and unfortunately those didn't really hold up. We were probably a little lackluster on the prep work there. That's probably why those failed already, but that means we gotta get the angle grinder back out and our not so premium Chinesium welder. Although I think my uncle actually did purchase a new welding machine. Oh yeah, okay, so looks like he did pick up a little updated welding machine. It's not exactly aesthetically pleasing having a mysterious vehicle wiring harness on top of it.
Let's do this, popsicle stand.
Alright, we're back in action here. Once we rifled through the disarray that is my uncle's garage, we've now prepared ourselves to throw this back together, hopefully. Any tool fanatics out there can empathize with this current situation. This is the perfect, epitomal example of what my uncle's entire garage looks like. No structure, no system. You got socket rails that are just mixed matched, or God knows where the sockets went. And so naturally, when you have to work in these kinds of conditions, you get angry and pissed before you even begin the job. I'm attempting to find the correct tool for my cousin right now. I'm not having a ton of luck, but let's just see if I can get him a longer ratchet. I take it from a fella who's about as lazy as they come. Don't skimp on the cotter pins. No,
a silly thing to not
it
do.
is a silly thing not to do. It's just not worth the risk, man. Unless of course it's annoying to put in, and then in that case, you know, screw it. Well, it's only appropriate that after you add a 1-inch spacer to your sway bar bushings, you gotta go for a test drive.
The repair doesn't matter. All that matters is that you follow the steps. Now let's go put some stress on this sway bar.
And in case it does still make noise, we got this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. We're literally like off-roading. This is the nice thing about having Ohio homes, is you can just... What about that little noise?
That's just the truck.
Okay.
No, trust me, this squeak was unmistakable.
Okay.
This was like high-pitched, piercing.
Outside the vehicle test. I think he's got some stuff in the truck bed, if you guys wonder what that atrocious noise is. Yeah! I'm going to attempt to put out this wildfire a little bit, which is this garage. Probably a fruitless endeavor, but... Alright, well, apologies if this video has been sporadic and appears to be completely unplanned. That's partly because it was. But we did have some goal in mind when we trekked down here, which was to come back and pick up a purchase that you may know from a previous video. So we get to bring this one home, mostly to be stored for winter. He's got far too many vehicles over here. And then maybe even in the future, you know, buy this off of my uncle, because I do like this car, and it almost gives me a little bit of a nostalgia kick from the 02 Mustang that I had. I won't be leaving him completely unequipped though. He also has an 03 Azure Blue Mach 1 here that's a bit more tastefully modded than the Cobra behind me. Obviously, no complaints to be made here. But anyways, this thing is about road trip ready. Got the battery topped off. It was trickling down. I think it's got a little bit of a battery draw that will eventually need to be addressed. But, yeah. Gonna get loaded up for the trip back. And I'm excited. My uncle has been busy since I was last here, which is good news, of course. Got completely new lower control arms, sway bar bushings, lowering springs too, which accents the car extremely well. Not too crazy low that we're gonna have to be worried about the Michigan roads, but gives it a nicer appearance. All right, I'm experimenting with different camera angles here. So we'll see afterwards how this one turns out. Okay. I guess the Mopar community is really active here in Lima, Ohio. Been on the road about an hour and a half, trekking back for Southeast Michigan. Got Noah following me in the FJ. I'm already doing a bad job of convoying because I just let a car get in between the two of us. But yeah, the Cobra's been driving great. Haven't seen the gas gauge move a ton, which was a bit of a shift from being in the FJ. I almost could see that thing moving down as we drove. It was painful. I topped this thing off before we got on the road. Paying for that premium fuel is something of torture. As far as plans for this car, well, unfortunately, winter is upon us here in the Rust Belt. I'm going to try to eke out as much enjoyment with this car as I can, but likely in about a month's time, you know, there will be snowfall. This car has hardly a speck of rust on it. Obviously, we're going to keep it garaged. As I kind of mentioned, my uncle has his Mach 1. It's a bit more of the modded race car type. It's got, you know, long tube headers, full exhaust system. It's got a specialty tune. The reason I bring that up is because we kind of agreed this car would serve more as the, you know, leisurely weekend convertible, and we don't want to mod it too much because it's very pleasant the way it is. You know, like I'm able to have a conversation right now without screaming or losing my voice because, you know, the exhaust drone is just overwhelming. Funny I say that though. That was one of the few mods I was actually trying to convince him that we should do. Some type of exhaust system. You know, it doesn't have to be long tube headers and all the sort. I think the exhaust system in particular comes to mind because I just remember those summer nights coming back from working my valet job. I'd have the top down of my GT. I had just a ridiculously loud exhaust. That car was quite literally the epitome of all bark, no bite, but it sounded damn good. It had a BBK off-road X-Pipe, totally legal, and then a Borla S-Type catback. I didn't have the attacks because I would probably have been arrested. But the S-Types were no slouch. They were quite loud. I think something that's often advertised with the Borla exhaust systems, though, is that the highway drone is very, very good. But basically, exhaust drone is just how much residual sound is occurring in the cabin when... oh, that guy totally lost his skid plate. That kind of sucks. This guy on the side of the freeway, skid plate had just completely fallen off his truck. Sorry, total squirrel moment. I was this close to putting an SLP loudmouth on my GT. I talked myself out of it the last second because a couple people were like, it's in the name, it's gonna be ridiculously loud. And then, you know, the young, dumb 17-year-old kid that I was, I kind of let some of those concerns overwhelm me. I ended up selling it, and then I switched to the Borla S-Types. Now, I don't have any regrets with the Borla S-Types, but the SLP loudmouths I just bought off some guy on Marketplace. He sold them to me dirt cheap. I could have had maybe not just as good, but 90% as good of a sounding exhaust, and for a fraction of the price. You know, I think those Borlas, even back before the real bad inflation that we have these days, that system was like $500. Brings us to today, of course. I think an SLP system would be really cool to try out. If you get an off-road X-Pipe and then the LM2 specifically of the SLP loudmouth series, I have just heard are goodness. If I get fancy with the video editing, I'll include a clip here. It's hard to do these cars wrong. They're fairly well established as some of the best sounding Mustang V8s ever made. Ironically, again, being a young, dumb kid, I sort of followed the guise of just people on forums and stuff, and a lot of them recommended to me when I was first putting a system on my previous Mustang, Flowmasters, you just can't go wrong with it, brother. You just can't go wrong with it. So I bought, I think, the Super 44s or the Super 40s catback system, and then I had the X-Pipe, and it was just so rattly. I could see for some people, maybe that's their taste. I heard from some guys that actually liked the exhaust pitch, that it made the car sound like it had more mods done to it than it really did. Which, when I heard that, that was an attractive idea, because little did they know I had eBay air intake on there and then just that exhaust system, basically. But I ended up switching them, as I mentioned, because the raspiness just got the best of me. It was just kind of annoying, at least in my opinion. This is a very long-winded way of saying I think the SLPs would be cool. Now I need to look into What changes about the IRS? I know that the exhaust configuration, basically from the rear end back, or the cat back, I could probably say, is different. The routing is different than when you have a solid rear axle as opposed to the independent rear suspension. So I have to look a little bit into that, and I'm also going to peek around the aftermarket. But what I mean by aftermarket is Facebook Marketplace, of course, my source for all the goodies and merchandise that I certainly never needed but find a justification to buy anyways. Hopefully I'm not alone in that addiction. Anyways, we are going to keep moving on. Knock on dashboard, but the car has been doing great. And that's all for now.